time has finally come to talk about Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. This is a very interesting one because with Revenge of the Sith, I actually saw this in 2005 and I've still got my cinema ticket. And at the time I was 15 years old and I fell asleep about halfway through this movie. I was in school at the time and yeah, all that kind of story. Now, ever since that time, I've actually never revisited this movie, which you might think, Mike, what? All that time later, nearly 20 years later, you never revisited. Well, I actually did last night as I'm recording this review on the 6th of September. Not sure when you guys will see this going live. So yes, with that in mind and my history of Revenge of the Sith, I've fallen asleep and finally rewatched it on the big screen. What was my thoughts on Star Wars Episode 3? Well, this movie was awesome. Hey guys, what is going on? Welcome to the channel and thank you for taking your own time out to check out my review for Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith, as I'm covering the Star Wars movies here on my channel. Now, this is definitely going to be an interesting discussion, so leave your thoughts on Revenge of the Sith down below in the comment section, so of course we can continue the discussion down there. This is directed and written by George Lucas. And if you're wondering more, Mike, what is Revenge of the Sith all around, in case you've never seen this movie or you want a little bit of a refresher, well, it focused on Hayden Christensen's character of Anakin Skywalker, who teams up with Obi-Wan Kenobi to free Palpatine from the clutches of Count Dooku, but little does Anakin know that Palpatine is trying to lure him into his prey, and he's also trying to find and fight the Jedi mind tricks, and ultimately succumbs to the dark side. And that's all I'm going to say to leave it, because there is a little bit more to it than that. There's a little bit more mind games and everything that else goes in field into the story, and especially towards the ending. So I'm going to leave it vague. Now, going into this one, you know in the intro my expectations and kind of my past realities of it. But within the last few weeks at this point, I've been revisiting Phantom Menace, and then of course I watched Attack of the Clones for the first time ever, and this one was a great time. I honestly really had a blast with this movie. Now sure, there's definitely some negatives, there's elements here that I don't think work, which we're going to get into, but before we go into that, of course, we've got to talk about the positives. So the positives for me is that this movie was fun. More than anything, this was just a great time. It clocks in at 140 minutes, and not once did I feel that runtime. This breezed by, easy watch, fun, engaging. The visual effects were pretty much awesome for the most part, and I think the performances all around are good. We'll get into that, but particularly the performance here for me is Ian McDiarmid as Palpatine. Absolutely steals the show. He was great. He was magnetic and also electric, no pun intended, throughout this entire duration. I thought that he honestly gave one of the best performances. I felt as if he leaned into the character of Palpatine, as we've seen in the past two movies, but especially he leaned into that even more, and I was absolutely all for it. But not just the performance-wise of Ian McDiarmid, the battles as well that we're going to get, like the Jedi battles, and there's multiple here of them. They're all exciting, they're all engaging. You just want to see those lightsabers just hit off each other continuously, because it is just so just grabbing you by the seat. At least for me, it grabbed me by the cinema seat last night. I was sat like this and I was like, oh, you know, I was in my element, and I honestly really enjoyed this. Now of course the John Williams score definitely accompanies all of that and definitely leans into some great moments, including another nod to Duel of the Fates, which I mean that like kind of number right there is never going to get old. It's always going to be a one that is just going to continuously be impactful on Star Wars for generations to come. What a great song, and what a great piece of music that we also had here. The battles were just exciting. As the plot moved along, I was finding myself even more engrossed into what was going on. I couldn't wait to see some of the fates of our characters, and I also was intrigued as to, okay, I remember bits and pieces of this movie, and of course going into more of like Rogue One and then A New Hope. Okay, well, how are elements of here going to set up for what we're going to see in the future? And I think certain elements is done well. Yes, again, there's some negatives, but again, for the positive aspects as well, I was just thoroughly entertained, guys. This was just a really great story. The culmination of the previous two entries of Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones served its purpose really well. It helped you buy into this finale that George Lucas was wanting to give the fans, and its payoff. And I think the payoff is done excellent. I loved how this ended. It's set up for so many great moments, so many great things to come, and if you've seen that original trilogy, you know exactly what is going to come. If you don't, you're in for a treat. So yes, absolutely loads of positives. I didn't mind a lot of the performance of some of the other characters, like Hayden Christensen, for example. Yeah, that's a story we're going to get into. But again, performances all around, I didn't mind. It's silly, it's goofy, it's off its time to an extent. So for that, it can kind of get a pass. Now, if you're wondering, well, Mike, with all the praise you're giving this, which I do give it a good score, by the way, to stick around to Fire, have you got any negatives? And the answer is yes. Now, of course, with this being like a visionary spectacle at the time, something a little bit different, pushing the envelope of what we could expect to see with visual effects and kind of the CG work, all that kind of stuff. Yes, there is going to be some elements that is dated, and there is some elements here that is absolutely dated, and I was kind of just laughable, really, especially with R2-D2 scene kind of towards the beginning of the movie. There was one scene I was like, yeah, that's bad, right? But it was funny. It kind of made me chuckle more than anything. And the biggest negative for me, guys, is the love interest and storyline with Padme and Anakin. I appreciate it's definitely more significant. For me, it felt more significant than the second movie, and there was a little bit less of it than Attack of the Clones. So, hey, at least George Lucas did something right there, you know? But ultimately, it was one that I didn't love. I still cringed at a lot of it. And I still ultimately think it's not the best romance, or at least not the best developed. Now, again, like I did in Attack of the Clones, I'm not going to blame Hayden Christensen or Natalie Portman for that romance, because at the end of the day, they are actor and actress who is just reading off the script and what's on the page. With all that in mind, I haven't really got any negatives apart from the two I mentioned. This, for me, is going to be one I can revisit time and time again. So, with that in mind, my score for Revenge of the Sith is a 4 out of 5 stars. Have you seen this entry? I mean, you probably have. If you haven't, let me know down below in the comment section so we can continue the discussion down there. If you don't know by now, I do have a Patreon. You can check that out by the link down below in the description box, where you can get access to so much more stuff that you're not going to get here on YouTube. Big thanks to all my awesome patrons for supporting the channel. In the meantime, if you missed my reviews for Attack of the Clones and the Phantom Menace, click over here. Yeah, check both those out. Have a little bit of a deep dive. Till next time, I'll see you guys. I'll be seeing you later.